Hello, everyone. It is now top of the hour. It's 4 o'clock our time in the UK, wherever it is in the world where you are. Welcome. Thank you for coming along to our amazing webinar, which is called Event Innovation, the latest trends in trade show, conference, and experience design you should steal. So, we're not asking you to pass go. We're not asking you to collect $200 on the Monopoly board. We're saying go straight to jail because you've stolen the best insights from our amazing panelists that we have today. Let me share my screen because I've got some great stuff to show you today. Let's have our slideshow. Okay, so before we get on to our panelists and we introduce Ross and Leslie, our amazing experts, I've got a few interesting insights to deliver to you about innovation. So this is a trends presentation that I've had a chat to our panelists. We have interviewed people at GRIP. We have interviewed all sorts of different people. And I want to give you a bit of information about what's happening in the world today when it comes to event innovation. Now, my name's Hugh. I am the SVP of Marketing at GRIP. Been working here for nearly 3 years now. And I really believe in connections. And I think when you bring the right people together, in your business life or personal life, amazing things happen. And that's why I'm at GRIP. And that's why I'm quite excited about some of the innovation trends we've got for you today. Right. Now, when we actually spoke to you, when you registered, we asked you a question. We said, what do you want us to focus on? What topics are you interested in? We've got a record number of registrants, loads of people in on this webinar right now. Thank you for joining and thank you for giving your requests. We asked you what topics you want to focus on. And we had loads of them. And so what I wanted to do today is put them all together into a quick deck, did a bit of research, spoke to a bunch of people, did some desk research, spoke to our panelists, and we wanted to come back to you on some of the things you asked for. So you were asking about digital signage, you were asking about AI tools, badging options, event engagement, and monitoring of attendee movements, experiential. There's a whole load of stuff. And I think what we can do, we can group it into 4 buckets. And that's what I've done. So we're talking about location-based services, experiential, engagement, and the last one we're talking about AI. Now that will go throughout the whole panel discussion today, but I just wanted to set the scene with a couple of slides, and I'm not going to go for very long because no one wants to hear me talk. They want to talk to our experts. Engagement, digital signage. There's some really cool stuff happening in digital signage. A lot of it's happening in the Middle East, and that's what we've seen. Dubai Air Show, one of our shows that we do, there's been some great stuff with, obviously the budgets are quite high, but these things where you have exhibitors who have LED screens that are all individual screens, but they all talk to each other and do amazing things. And that's a real great way of boosting engagement, getting people to come to their stands. So trying to encourage your exhibitors to do things like this would be amazing if they've got the budget. Not everyone has, but it's quite an interesting kind of take on how to get people to talk about your show, your conference, your exhibition. So that's digital signage. Also signage, this is one that we got from Ross, and he's going to talk about this a bit later on. Maps on kiosks. What we've seen is digital kiosks like this Pop Shop, which is based in America. A lot of people want to just see where things are on your busy trade show floor. And having kiosks is a great way to do that. It reduces paper, so saves you money, but also it could be a revenue generator because you could have some ads on there for some of your sponsors. Meetings, I would say this, but this really is true. Meetings are booming as a way of engagement. You've probably all subscribed to Julius Solaris's emails. He put one out the other day that was saying, the old days are gone where it's content first. It's actually all about connections now. Because of COVID, a lot of these talks are online. People expect them to be online afterwards. So why wouldn't you just watch the talks at 2x speed at your own leisure? Actually, what you can't get online and what we need to lean into more as organizers is setting up these amazing connections, building long-lasting business relationships between your participants, because that's what they're really there for. And so Manifest is one of our customers. This is a logistics show in Vegas, just happened recently. And they have these one-to-one meeting areas. You can obviously, like Shop Talk, you see things like this with the numbers on the tables. You bring people together. The app will tell people where to meet. And we are seeing huge demand for this sort of technology to enable these meetings to happen, that people can then rate the meetings and they can get better recommendations, which we'll come on to in a bit. Smart badges, another thing that we're seeing absolutely booming at the moment. This is digital badges, so a Bluetooth tracker that connects to each badge, and then you give that to the participants. Obviously, the unit cost is higher than just a paper badge, but it really does remove the friction in making these connections. So when people meet, they touch their two badges together, it makes a little sound, and the green light flashes, and then at the back end on their app, they can download all the leads that they made at that show, or they generated by having these digital connections via the smart badges. Again, it's one of those things where you remove the friction and great things happen. So really focusing on removing this friction by having these smart badges. They also do other interesting things, and that's where we come on to location-based services. So what we can see from smart badges and the connections that are happening, you can see where the connections are taking place around your show floor, but also you can ensure that you can track where everyone is. So not just the connections. If you've got the right technology installed, you can see where people are looking. And what's interesting about this is then that allows you to provide ROI to your sponsors and exhibitors, which is another way to help them rebook, reduce churn, increase revenue, all that great stuff. What's next? I hear you cry. Oh, well, you've got some back-end data to tell you, maybe it can also show you where people are checking into which sessions and how long they're dwelling in these sessions. So again, sponsor sessions, great ROI for your exhibitors, sponsors, to show them actually what your participants are doing at the show. This is another one of the Ross's, QR codes to boost traffic to sponsors' booths. QR codes, again, it's another COVID thing. COVID happened. QR codes are a real thing. Before, people didn't really know what they were. Now we're all used to ordering off the menus at restaurants off the back of the pandemic. And now putting QR codes all over your show floor allows you to send the right people to the right sponsors' booths and exhibitors' booths. So yeah, you could scan that QR code and you could have a quick play on that to see how it works. We'll send you this deck afterwards because there are other slides in here which you could have a look at and do whatever you want with it. I think this is the final one. Oh no, we've got AI after this. This is the second to last one, experiential. I really love the kind of stuff you can do with exhibitors, sponsors, activations. Obviously, this is up to your sponsors and exhibitors to activate their presence at your show in the right way. But the best shows I've ever been to, and this is one from South by Southwest, one of Grip's customers, one of the best ones I see is that when the exhibitors really go to town and they really think creatively about how they can engage people. I've been to too many shows where it's a bucket of sweets at the front and that makes you go to the actual show floor. But when you think creatively, and that doesn't have to actually cost a lot of money. This costs a lot of money. Lockheed Martin, it's a kind of selfie experience where you could put yourself in this particular pose and then get a photo and then share it on social. I really love this one from a couple of years ago at South by Southwest. But I went to a show recently and they got you to fold a paper plane and had a competition to throw the paper plane into a letterbox, I think it was. It was absolutely silly. It was crazy. But as I was folding the paper plane and I got to win a prize by getting it through this hole in the letterbox, sounds really random, but I had a really natural conversation with the sales guy on the booth. And it was a really great conversation. I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't have had that interaction. Such a simple thing to do, but I think it's about creativity and just thinking differently. It doesn't have to take a lot of budget. And so this is about organizers enabling their exhibitors to create a great experience which benefits everyone at the show. Just letting them go off and do their own thing probably isn't good enough. But I know at South by Southwest, they end up almost coaching their exhibitors to do better. This is another great one, I think, from this year's South by Southwest. This is a HR software platform. They took over a particular ballroom, I think, in a nearby hotel in Austin and turned it into a mini golf course. How cool is that? But again, it gives the sales reps a chance to walk around the golf course with the prospects, with your participants, to tell them about what they're actually selling. And this is something we did at Grill. I'm quite proud of this. Really, really low cost activation. We turned our booth at, I think this was at Convex, we turned it into a board game shop where we were selling Must Meet, our AI enabled automatic meeting scheduler. Again, didn't cost that much to make, but it really tied into how can you bring people together to ensure that they have the right meetings at the right time. Board game was our kind of theme that we did for that one. This is a great guy that I've worked with before. I would hit him up if I was you. I would love to see organizers get someone like this, Robert Dunsmore. He's a freelance creative director, and just pay him some money to then give him as a service to your exhibitors. Wouldn't that be great to just 10x your show by making all the exhibitors 5% better at their creative executions? I think that would make a magical show and would definitely boost the experiential part. Right, finally, AI. What we're seeing a lot of at the moment is AI auto lead follow-up for event marketers based on intent. This is one of the hottest startups at the moment, comes out of London. They've just got a hell of a lot of funding. They're called 11x.ai. They're providing these generative AI powered sales reps on the telephone, but also email. And what we're seeing with organizers today is they're producing some interesting intent data. So who's attending what session? What people are they interested in at the show? All of this stuff is fantastic data for organizers to use to then retarget these participants using tools like this. So you could see that someone is really interested in, maybe it was a potential exhibitor for your next year's show was coming along and interested in certain sessions. You could say, well, wouldn't you want to come and sponsor next year's show? And you could reach out using these AI powered reps, which is quite cool. AI enabled meetings. So we've already talked about meetings being a thing at the moment. They're getting busier and busier, and the trend's really going up and to the right. But AI powered meetings. So this is recommendations based on the AI, based on the behavior that people are taking in your app, and then finding lookalike audiences to recommend the right people to meet. This is something that we're seeing a lot of demand for as well. And then finally, AI's impact in 5 years. This is one question that was asked, and this is something I'm talking about a lot at the moment, which is, I think it's really good news for event organizers, the rise of generative AI. And I say that because what we're seeing is that all of this amazing outreach is happening, but is it really that amazing? We've got these people we think are humans, and we're getting a lot of cold emails, we're probably getting a lot of LinkedIn in messages from people saying, oh, can you buy my product? And it reads really well. And so what I think in 5 years, we're going to see probably a 5x increase in the demand for events, because people just won't trust digital communications anymore because it's so good, it's so human. And so what will happen is people lean into having face-to-face, in-person connections. And that's why I think events are only going to win as a result of this generative AI boom. Okay, that's enough from me. No one wants to hear me talking all the time, apart from me and my mum. But what we're going to do is introduce our amazing panelists, and we have 2 brilliant ones for you to do today. We've got Leslie, who's the National Sales Manager at American Trade Show Services. She's going to talk a bit about herself and her background. And then we've got Ross as well, who's the CEO of ExpoFP, who does all things floor plans for events. Leslie, thank you very much for joining us today. I realise you have been a quick stand-in for Allison, who is also at Trade Show Services, American Trade Show Services, and she had a Cat 4 hurricane in Florida. So hopefully she's okay. I'm sure she is. She's kind of weathering the storm. Can you tell us a little bit about us and your background? That would be amazing. Thank you.
Sure. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Hugh. As Hugh mentioned, I'm Leslie with American Trade Show Services. I have 20 years in the event industry space. So I started back in 2004 with a company called Freeman, who is an event decorator. Spent my time there for about 10 years, and since 2013 have been with American Trade Show Services, which is a full suite of registration services for events and conferences.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Appreciate you being here. And Ross, over to you. Please tell us a little bit about you and where you've come from.
Hello, I'm Ross Sudentas, so I'm CEO of ExpoFP. We've been in business since 2018. My background is primarily software, so all my life I was first a programmer, then we had a company that provided different services. We started providing different services to companies that organize events, And I've noticed that floor plans is something that is really outdated. We came to this market, and right now we are widely known. It seems that we are most popular company right now, and certainly most advanced. So I'm just happy to be here because there's so much potential just beyond of having that pretty image. And majority of organizers, not majority, but some of organizers still do not see the potential that all of this can present to them.
Thank you very much, Ross, and thank you very much, Leslie. Thank you very much for joining us. I think what's worth saying here before we hand over for the first question is that these two amazing panelists are, they're not going to be pitching their services. We're just going to be talking about innovation that we've seen around the world. And these two guys really are going around to lots and lots of shows. Leslie, I know ATS does, 600 events a year. So you're covering so many things. And Ross, you have a number of shows that you do all around the world. And so you're obviously going to these shows and seeing interesting things, and you're talking to organizers and you're seeing what's trending. And I think that's really what we want to get out of today's panel debate. So Leslie, firstly, over to you. What is the most craziest, interesting, exciting innovation that you have seen recently?
Well, most recently, I would probably, going back to what you talked about a few minutes ago, is AI lead follow-up and attendee engagement. That's really where I'm seeing the hottest trends right now on the event show floor. And when it comes to AI, to be very transparent, when I first started hearing about AI, I was a little skeptical about it. I was like, it's something new. I have to learn. What is this going to look like? Kind of like you said, is it going to take over things? Is it really going to benefit in the event industry? And as I started doing my research and being on the show floor and seeing how it can benefit events, it's going to be such a huge benefit for exhibitors in the marketplace and sponsors when it comes to activations in their booths.
And so can you tell us a little bit about, examples? Because that's what everyone on this webinar wants to hear. They want to hear actual real life examples of where this has happened and what the results have been, really, so they can go away and steal some of these ideas and use it at their shows.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's two things that I've seen. So camera technology for AI analysis. So I've seen this, cameras placed strategically within booth spaces or in a sponsored session area on the show floor. And, that allows the exhibitors or the sponsors to gather insights on impressions as they enter either their booth space or their session, and to be able to track engagement scores with interaction with the staff and how, their space or their session is performing. So those camera analytics really provides a lot of data points for those people that are kind of looking for engagement within their space. And secondly, the newest thing that I'm seeing that's really exciting is lead capture integration. So, what this is a tool that's enhancing the sales process. It's enhancing the sales process by advanced AI, by sending personalized emails to leads that they're capturing within their space. And this really helps, exhibitors and sponsors focus on the relationships that they're having and letting AI take care of follow-ups.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what we're seeing a lot as well at GRIP, is that's kind of intent data and using intent data to be better personalized when you're doing outreach and things like this. There's a particular new tool that HubSpot launched last week, I think it was, and it's now in beta, which is all about intent data. So you can learn about the people visiting your website, and it enriches that data and gives you way better opportunity to personalize your responses back to them. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing that at shows, at events too, as well, whether it's helping organizers reach out to their sponsors, exhibitors, to try and get new ones, but also maybe it's using the data that's coming from the shows. So the exhaust data around what's happening inside the app, who are people looking at, what are the sessions people are favoriting and adding to their personal agenda. Ross, this is something that you're big on, isn't it, in terms of data and understanding participants more when it comes to location services and what they're doing inside shows. What are you seeing when it comes to innovation? What's really exciting you in the event space at the moment?
I don't see anything revolutionary outside of AI. So just to add to Leslie's point, the particular companies that we work closely with is Zenus. You can take a look where they have camera recognitions. And something else you mentioned, I'll probably remember it in a second. But in our areas, in areas of location, there's a lot of like small improvements. There's a lot of small things that just iteratively add to the experience. Like you mentioned, the displays. This is something that comes up. Like right now, a lot of companies stop focusing just on their halls and not displaying just their whole floor plan, but add different locations around these floor plans. Like, for example, they have certain event that comes maybe after the meeting. Maybe it's just exhibitors meeting there, but you need to know where it's located. You need to know how to get there. You need to know the scheduler of this place. So adding this location is interesting. Other companies I see that they're adding attractions. For example, Köln Messe, they have PDF map on their website that shows different attractions around the city. And right now we've created interactive map that shows the same thing, but in much more intuitive way, that where you can search, and that is much more flashy. So I would say for what I am excited about is just not to limit yourself just to the whole, but look at the whole experience that people have and give them the tools so they're comfortable, they know where to go, when it's happening, how to get there.
I love that because that's really dialing into something I'm quite passionate about at the moment, which is the show beyond the show.
Yeah,
I've just invented that name. I'm gonna patent it. I'm gonna trademark
that's I think that summarizes it perfectly.
the show beyond the show. So let's dive into that a little bit. So where I'm seeing it, and I'd love Leslie your take and Ross your take as well. Obviously you've got things like South by Southwest, and it spans a whole town, which isn't for every organizer. But there are things that I'm seeing with this show within a show or show beyond the show, where side events are becoming more of a thing. So you've got the traditional agenda, but your sponsors and exhibitors also have their own things they want to run. So maybe it's that crazy golf course, which is at a different hotel. Maybe it is a roundtable dinner that's happening the day before the show. And a lot of this is being done on the side. And I think organizers are actually missing out an opportunity here, because you've almost got third parties that are hijacking your audience and doing things with your audience. It's like, hang on a minute, they're my audience. So why wouldn't you want to leverage your audience more? And that's something we're developing at Grip is the kind of side event management, where sponsored exhibitors have got a separate portal. They can put in their side events, but that can be curated and that can be approved by the organizer. And you're basically submitting your events to the organizer, and the organizer can then integrate it into the existing agenda. So you basically augment your agenda. And what I really like what you're saying, Ross, is suddenly your show becomes more than the actual show itself, but it's also different locations as well. It doesn't even have to be in the show floor, the hall that you've rented. It could be anywhere in the city, which is mind-blowing, really, when we think about these shows becoming absolute monsters.
I had one of the best conversations just having a glass of whiskey with with another exhibitor, and it was in the evening after the show, and it was just meet and greet, but you meet a lot of people there and you have great conversation there. So this becomes show beyond the show.
I'm
And
writing
this
that
is
down.
maybe
Show
just as
beyond the
important.
show, whiskey after dinner. Yeah, I mean, this is the other thing we've seen, isn't it, Alison? Sorry, Leslie. Keep thinking we're coming on to our person who's stuck in a Cat 4 hurricane in Florida. Leslie, what we've seen is things like CES, where everyone says the best kind of chats with sponsored exhibitors happen behind closed doors. They're in the hotel rooms where the demos are happening. They're never on the actual booth, which I think could be a really big opportunity for organizers to think beyond what they're actually doing today. And just, if you take the cookie cutter and you go, right, we've got the show floor, let's just do what we're going to do in the show floor, and then not even wrap it in some sort of agenda or some digital tools to be allow people to navigate the hidden parts of the show beyond the show. What have you seen in this particular trend?
Yeah, I mean, exactly like you're saying, I'm seeing the words micro events. micro events being happened pre-event, post-event, during the event, and event organizers can utilize those micro events as leverage, as you mentioned. She'll be on the show. Being able to get specific groups together for a dinner, for a cocktail, for a bowling event. As you said, utilizing things that are already there. If you have an event at a hotel, you know, a pickleball competition, if they have a pickleball court, or just, you know, some type of an event as a micro event.
Yeah, and I guess the key is just ensuring that the organizer captures all of this. So, you know,
Correct.
because all of this stuff probably is happening anyway at their show, but they're not capturing it, they're not recording it anywhere, and so there could be a lot of attendees who feel like they're missing out because they don't see what's happening. It's like, oh, I heard someone went there and I didn't get an invite. But if that is all recorded, documented somewhere, then at least, you know, you wouldn't get as much attendee or first-time attendee churn, which can be sometimes up to 40%, because people feel like they've spent a lot of money on your show and they're missing out because they feel like they haven't got the full experience. So documenting the full experience somewhere, whether it's in your event app or on your website or whatever, would be very useful. Ross, what else are you seeing that's of interest to you? We talked about display kiosks, QR codes. What other stuff do you find interesting in innovation?
So just Spark AI is another tool that is widely used. I see a lot of people using that. This is something that is actually provides practical value. In other terms, I actually believe that incremental improvements in other areas, in traditional areas, can bring more values than chasing some dream where we don't know what will happen. In particular, for example, old-fashioned QR codes. The QR codes that everyone knows how to use. At this point, everyone going to a restaurant is used to scanning QR code and getting some information. So mentally, everyone is there. When they see QR code and instructions of what to do, they will scan it. So from point of view of organizer, the entry point to put a QR code that leads to some sponsor, to very important, your very important exhibitor, is almost negligible. It is just a static poster with a QR code that plots the route from where they are right now, where they're scanning, to that particular exhibitor. And there's a potential to collect significant sums of money for promoting this specific exhibitor, and they will receive real traffic. And for organizers to do that costs almost nothing. So let's just do it more often. Another usage of QR codes is with that you can have a lot of QR codes almost on every corner, scan to see where you are. So even if you're not using an expensive Bluetooth technology where everyone knows their location at all the time, this requires like $10,000, $20,000. If you don't want to do it on the cheap, just have these QR codes everywhere. People, anytime they're confused where I am, they scan it, they see immediately where they are. So something super simple like that.
And have Next you got one. Examples of where that's happened? Have you seen some shows that have used QR codes effectively?
Tons. ICE in London, recent event. So we have videos. One of your slides contains this video. You can actually, maybe not, but please just tag me or ping any of our stuff. We will show you how it's done, and it's really simple thing to do and cheap thing to do.
Yeah, certainly we've seen that from places like AgriConnect, and they have their llama show, which is farming, tractors, agricultural machinery show. They have their QR codes printed on the back of chairs. They have QR codes printed on the back of staff T-shirts. And I think people are just used to having them now. I think the other thing that's interesting is the kind of data analytics point of view, because you can have each individual QR code has a particular URL linked to it. So you can see which ones are getting the traction, because you can see which QR codes are getting scanned and which ones aren't.
That's actually a great point, because anytime your attendee interacts with something digital, this digital actually produces a set of data that you can record and further analyze. The simplest way to visualize it is that you will have heat maps. So anytime some activity happens, like on that slide that you showed us, there's certain activity portions. If, for example, there's a lot of scans in one place, you will see that. We will display it to you. We have it. If there's a piece of paper where they just read and go, you cannot track that. So using the technology not only simplifies the experience for attendees, it also allows you to capture this information. So that's the difference between digital and non-digital.
And Leslie, what are you seeing in terms of this data that's being collected, heat maps, all this sort of stuff? Is it helping to rebook exhibitors and sponsors? You know, is it used for kind of ROI? How are we using this data? Because I think it's all well and good having a lot of analytics, but if nothing's ever done with it, it just becomes analytics theater.
Yeah, absolutely. It also depends on where you're putting these QR codes. Like a lot of where I'm seeing it is kind of like a passport to prizes or a gamification type situation to drive, traffic, maybe, for example, with regards to exhibitors onto the show floor. So to those data points, you can see, how your exhibitors are doing with those data points as far as how many scans they're getting and how many visitors they're getting towards their booth, so that when you're looking for future, how well did those areas do as far as traffic flow and attendee engagement?
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's all about engagement at the end of the day, isn't it? I mean, that's what everyone really, really wants. And that's something we're seeing a lot of people asking for. We had a question from someone saying about smart badges. What happens when you're standing in a crowded place and use a smart badge to connect? How do you ensure your contact details are shared with person X in front of you instead of person Y standing behind you? Good question. So the badge has a little button and you both press the button at the same time. And then if it glows green, therefore you've made the connection. It ends up in your app to download, do the lead retrieval and get all the data. If it goes red, it didn't connect, so you have to do it again, but that very, very rarely happens. Leslie, what are you seeing with smart badges? Is this a thing? Is the reduction of friction in terms of lead retrieval of interest? Obviously, it's not for everyone because it's quite expensive, but a lot of people are taking interest because it does provide a lot of value to a lot of organizers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends on the event, right? It depends on the focus of your event, how your event is set up. For events where there's maybe not a big trade show presence, and there's a lot of attendee to attendee connection, smart badges makes complete sense. Being able to network with your attendees, collect information, with a simple of a click or a press of a button, those work really well. Where you have events where it's mainly heavy focused on exhibitors, lead capturing probably is coming into place with that. And they want to be able to scan the badges of the person that visited their booth, collect information, make any kind of notes, custom qualifiers, those kind of things, additional assets. But the two and the one can also work well together.
Yeah, you talk about lead retrieval. I'd like to just go into that a little bit because that's obviously what we're seeing as well. There's a lot of pressure. So it's another trend that we're seeing, a lot of pressure on marketing budgets at the moment, which means exhibitors and sponsors want to see ROI. Otherwise, they're just not going to engage with your show anymore and give you any revenue. And so lead retrieval is a huge thing for them. So I'd like to just have a chat to you, Ross and Leslie, about where you're seeing lead retrieval done really well and where it's done really, really badly. Before I do that, I just want to give a message here from one of our sponsors. And the sponsor today is Grip. Hooray! And the sponsored message is, please sign up for our next webinar. This one is called What Sponsors and Exhibitors Really Want from Your Next Event, which segues quite nicely into what we're talking about in terms of lead retrieval. We're going to have a bunch of the world's best event marketers. So those people from enterprise companies who are going to be on our panel, who exhibit at lots of huge events, and they're going to tell you as organizers what they really love about your events and what they really hate about your events. And wow, they have got some serious opinions. So please join us on the 17th of October, where we're going to be talking about what's great and what's bad. And so hopefully that can help organizers improve their shows, because sometimes the sponsor exhibitors, they're too busy to give you the feedback, or they're too nice to tell you what they really think. So I'm not saying we're getting a bunch of nasty event marketers, but they certainly are very, very vocal, and they want to tell you exactly how they feel. So that's our next webinar. So please register, scan the QR code, or go on Grip's website. Okay, we're going to stop all that sponsored nonsense. Now we're going to get back to the real deal, which is lead retrieval. Ross, you made a good point earlier about you can't do lead retrieval if people can't find you in the first place.
Well, yes, but let's focus on the subject, because I'm not I'm a little bit skeptical about the whole smart badges. What it really does, it just tries to offload some of the functionality that phones can do on some third-party device, not even third party, but a separate device. And not only it's expensive, but in my view, everything that smart badge can do, application can do better. I would much, if I was in organizer's shoes, I would much rather demand to have an application that does lead retrieval, that does very simple interface for exchanging information, and just forget the badging. Again, additional functionality for badges is to track users' location. Everything can be done in an app. The same thing, if users give you permission to track them within an app can track their location and have the same information. So as usually, you do not carry the separate calculator, separate camera. It's your phone that does it all. And now suddenly we're into badges. A little bit skeptical, but that's just my opinion. Now, as far as lead retrieval and just exchanging information, I think it's just a matter of interface. If almost everyone has their applications once they go to event app. So if in this application, there's super simple functionality of even just always having a button to scan someone's badge, and having a button to have this QR code to be scanned. If this is always displayed, then the exchange of information, being lead retrieval or exchange information between just two attendees on the show, will be just as simple as exchanging information through the badges. So make this interface. Let's not introduce separate expensive hardware devices, and people will be just as happy. One more thing on lead retrievals. Lead retrievals should be very standard on each and every application. It shouldn't be any additional cost. It's the essence of the application. So I saw some events where they require extra money from exhibitors to lead retrieval device. In old ages, it was separate hardware device, even though already for dozens of years, everything can be done on the phone. So I would say, take time to select an application provider that gives you all of this in an interface which is the best on the market, and this way you will serve your show the best.
And Leslie, what have you seen in terms of specifics? What organizers are using lead retrieval in a good way, and which ones probably aren't doing it as good? Those ones can be anonymous. You don't have to name names.
No, I get it. I mean, almost all the shows that I go to, lead retrieval is being offered. It's the entire reason why people are at your shows, including your attendees. Attendees, everybody's there for face-to-face marketing, face-to-face meeting, face-to-face connections. And with lead retrieval, a lot of tech shows, a lot of veterinary shows are utilizing it really well, being able to embed confidentially in a barcode that attendee's contact information, so that when I go to Ross's booth, he can collect my information, but he can do more beyond that. He can score my lead or put in notes of what we discussed. And then, as I mentioned earlier, bringing AI into the mix to be able to continue those conversations while I'm still on site, to avoid those connections from going cold. So, making sure that you have lead retrieval at an event is very important for your exhibitors and sponsors.
So how have the organizers, exhibitors, sponsors, how have you seen them using AI in this way? What sort of tools, what workflows have they got to leverage this technology? Because I think that's something that everyone's really excited about on this webinar.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to lead retrieval, whomever that vendor is, it's really a value add. It's just an additional option that comes with the service. So being able to implement that software into the lead retrieval scanning as it's already built. It's kind of already built into it.
Cool. And Ross, what sort of AI tools have you seen being used these days by organizers? What's kind of bubbling up to the surface?
At some show, I saw a robot that is just walking around and just shows the booth, and people are excited because it's a novelty, because it's funny. So it's not AI, but it's some fun piece of technology that I would suggest to everyone. As far as AI goes, I would limit the impact of AI, and what I expect most is at finding the right connections. All of the products I use so far leave me wanting, because the connection that AI suggests are always limited. I understand that there's problems with just data set, that how well they basically know you. So if they know you just for one show, it's very limited connection that they can make. If they know you as a person who was at few shows, they will suggest something better. But that area where I see the potential for biggest improvements, because so far it's far from perfect. So that area where I expect it most.
Yeah, I think it's personalization really, is at the end of the day, is what we're talking about here. And the more data you can get on people, the more you can personalize things. And what we're seeing at Grip is using, behavioral data from the event app. So, the more people are looking at various sessions, searching for certain topics, you can use that behavior data to profile them and provide them better recommendations of people to meet, better sessions to go and attend. And then you can use lookalike audience targeting, which is something that's working really, really well at the moment, by using the AI to understand people like this, also like people like that. And you can have bucketing, and you can put people into different buckets. So yeah, I think it all comes down to better personalization.
Hugh, to add to that, we are working with Grip right now. So when Grip actually makes connection and makes suggestion of what exhibitors or what sessions to visit, we will plot on our map the most optimal route, how to visit all of the exhibitors they want to visit and sessions in the shortest amount of time. So this is something that we will work on top of Grip's AI.
Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? It's like different vendors building on different vendors to elevate the experience for the participants and the exhibitors and the sponsors and everyone involved in the whole process. Anything else you guys want to cover? We've got 2 minutes left. Is there any hot topic? And I'm going to let either of you jump in and say, we haven't covered this particular innovation that this particular organizer's doing and are seeing huge benefits from it. Ross, I can see you. You're thinking. What are you thinking about?
So from my point of view, small things, display kiosks. I saw lines lining up behind displays or behind kiosks just to find where to go. So this is simple, but this is something useful. PopShop, CloudTouch, both wonderful companies, just rent kiosks from them, have maps plus schedulers there. It will be 80% of what they're for. So that's one. Second, consider using your map offline. Just check your venue, see if internet connection is bad. If it's bad, just make sure your kiosks and the app uses the map offline. Then there's no connection issues. Then everyone can find where to go. So small things, but
yeah,
they
huge
come
impact.
up sometimes. Yeah, they make huge impact.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of offline mode is a huge win, because there are so many huge shows, aren't there, with massive floors that just the Wi-Fi just does not work in a lot of these places. So
yeah,
going back to the old school is the new way. Leslie, finally from you, anything that you want to touch on that we might not have covered?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in regards to innovation or wow factors at your events, kind of what you said, Hugh, earlier, you don't have to have a massive budget to do innovation at your event or do event tech at your event. I always recommend talk to your vendors, talk to your peers. What have they seen in the marketplace that works well? Something as simple as, in my personal opinion, when you attend an event, first place you go to is registration. Registration sets the tone of the event. And I was at an event recently, a tech event, I can't say the name, but they had a reception at the event. So I don't know what the word they used for it, but it was such a welcoming experience. They had a charcuterie board out, and they had a tea tasting area out, and they had mocktails out. And for those that are indulging in cocktails, they had a cocktail section as well as a violinist. And that was all just while going to get my badge. So experiential first impressions that you may have had on the show floor or budgeted somewhere else, having at registration as a first experience of, hey, this is what this event's going to be like, is huge.
Yeah, I
Or
agree.
like in the expo when I remember just getting out of an airplane and there's just pianist playing and there's welcome signs, just makes me feel warm, small things, but very pleasant.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about how we innovate at Grip, we think about the user journey and you plot it on a timeline, and you could do the same with an event. And I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar are doing it for their events. But anything you could take away from this, it's you don't have to use the latest technological innovation. You could literally look at your journey from registration, maybe from even before that, to see all the touch points that they have and how can you make each touch point maybe 5% better. Brian Chesky, the founder of Airbnb and CEO, he talks about 10x experiences, and they do this process every few years at Airbnb where they look at what's a 1x experience at Airbnb. So what is it today? Okay, what could a 2x experience be? What could a 10x experience be? Oh, the 10x experience is you've got an orchestra playing for you when you turn up at your Airbnb, and there are flowers and George Clooney's there to welcome you. Obviously that's not going to happen, but they could dial it back a bit from 10x to maybe 2, 3x. Maybe they could get there. So yeah, I think one thing we could all take away from this webinar is think a bit outside the box, start from a blank sheet of paper and think about your participant experience, not just the attendees, but also the exhibitors and the sponsors. Right, I'm going to ask you both where people can connect with you. While you're doing that, I'm just going to share this again, which is a blatant plug for our next webinar. Ross, you've been amazing. How can people connect with you and ask you questions about all things floor plans?
LinkedIn is the easiest way. Just find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, talk to me directly. If there's some smaller questions, we have chat button on our website. Just get an instant answer from one of our guys.
Brilliant, thank you. And Leslie, thank you for joining today. How can people connect with you?
No, thank you for having me. Just like Ross said, on LinkedIn, you can connect with me there. You can schedule an appointment with me there, as well as email and cell phone.
Lovely. Well, thank you both. You've been amazing. We will share the slides from this presentation with everyone. And thank you everyone for joining. We'll see you on the next webinar. And from me and my amazing panelists, it's goodbye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.